Hi, I'm Vix.
Hi, I'm Emma, and we're here to talk about all things spiritual.
I'm so excited about this, even though we're not really sure what we're going to talk about today.
No, we actually had a giantly long conversation before we started recording because we know this industry right now is something special, and we're excited to help people find their path.
Yeah, and a lot of what we're going to talk, well, a lot of what I think we're going to talk about has kind of come out of conversations that me and Emma have had around so many things, around spirituality, around spiritual business, and what we've seen being posted online and in different places that we've kind of been like, what?
So, Vix, why don't you introduce yourself so for the viewers that don't know who we are, know who we are?
Yeah, well, I'm Vix, and I run a business called New Age Hipster, and I've been running my business for about 5 years now, which is kind of crazy that it's been that long. And in that time, I have done so many different things. I kind of started out just blogging and blogging about my own personal spiritual journey. And from there, I kind of started offering readings. Like, people enjoyed my blog posts, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do some readings and see how that goes. And so I started doing readings. And then when people liked my readings, I started creating courses. And when people liked my courses, I started creating my membership, my spiritual development circle. And when people were liking that, I was like, oh, maybe I could teach other people how to run spiritual businesses. So then I started my mastermind. And that's kind of a very short version of like how I ended up here.
Yeah. And I'm Emma Smallbone. I'm a seer and an empath. I have been seeing spirits since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, but in my later years after I had my son, I really felt it was important to create a connection for myself. You know, I never got into this thinking it would be a business, thinking I would be reading. I just wanted to know what was going on in my head. And then things spiraled. I very quickly turned into doing readings, giving messages, standing up at the spiritualist church, you know, doing all of these things still for my own personal joy. And then, like Vix, it just went into people wanted to know what I was doing. They wanted to connect with that same thing. So, you know, doing readings, then doing a course, and then having an online group, and, you know, a paid group and a free group, and all of these things, because people are so thirsty for this knowledge right now. But, you know, both Vix and I have talked about this, and what is key to both of our path is our own spiritual connection. That is where it all started, and why I think we're doing this. We talked about this a while ago about, you know, most of us in this industry doing this stuff had a personal practice way before we started it as a career, that creating that foundation. And I think now, you know, one of our biggest frustrations is the 6-figure spiritual income track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting just listening to you talk, Emma, and like, it's so interesting that we both came from the same place with this. Like, I never ever really had the intention or the goal to run a spiritual business. Like, that was never a part of the plan for me. I picked up my tarot deck after like many years of having it in the drawer, and I was like, oh, like, this is actually really cool, like what I'm learning and what I'm discovering. Maybe I'll like start a blog and just share what's coming up for me with other people who are also on the tarot journey. Because at that time I was connecting with a lot of other people online who are also on their tarot journey, and it's like, oh, we're just all sharing our path. And it never really started as like, oh, I'm gonna start a business, or I'm gonna like make this amount of money and I'll do it selling spiritual services. Like, that all stuff came way later. So yeah, it's interesting to hear that you had a similar experience, in that for you it was never about like, I'm going to start a business and make all this money and whatever. No. So yeah.
Well, I think anybody that's coming into the spiritual realm is truly looking for healing. That's why we're doing it. We're stuck in a place where we don't have answers. We don't know what we're supposed to be doing with our life, or we're just looking to connect with something bigger than ourselves, and for most people that starts through meditation. Then you might step into oracle cards and then maybe pick up some crystals. But it really is about connecting with self. And we were talking earlier about how the spiritual industry focuses on these upper chakras. We got to connect to spirit. We've got to be up here. We've got to, reach for that conversation. And really, all of the answers are inside of us. When you get quiet, you're connecting with self. Yes, you're hoping to connect with something greater than yourself, but something greater than yourself is yourself. It's that self that you haven't found that connection with yet.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. And that's like such a big part of the reason that I kind of got back into my spiritual path. Because like you, I've kind of been spiritual my whole life, like to some extent. But I kind of got to this place in my life where I wasn't very happy in my job. My relationships were really strained and difficult. And I was trying to get answers. I remember like trying to talk to my spirit guides, and they were just like, like, you got to do all the stuff first. Like, we'll talk to you later. Like, need to go and learn how to protect your energy. You need to go and do this. But yeah, I was kind of just in this place where it was like, well, I need to talk to someone or something. Like, I need to tune in, because this doesn't feel like it. Like, this doesn't feel like it for the reason that I'm here on this planet.
Yeah. And how, like, for you to feel confident in your practice and feel like you were connecting, how long did that take? Like, how long until you were like, oh, I've got this kind of down?
There's like two answers to that question. And one is like, I still don't.
Oh yeah.
Like, I do it all the time, and I talk to my guides and angels all the time, and I get that guidance all the time. But just like we were talking before we hit record, there's some stuff going on in my life right now where I'm like, when am I going to get the answers to this? Hello, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm open. Like, give me the sign. And it's not coming. But then the other answer to that question is like, straight away, all I really needed to do was like, for me, like, tuning into that voice was less about tuning into the voice and more about getting everything else to be quiet.
Yeah.
So when I started doing my energy protection stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to tune out everything that isn't mine, like, I could suddenly hear that voice. That's all I really had to do. But I mean, it wasn't like it just happened one day. Yeah. It is a process, and you get little hits, and you're like, oh, like, I just got something. This is really cool. Yeah. And then, like, the next day you'll be like, I can't find it again. And then the next day you'll get something else, and you're like, is that it? Is this it? So it does take time to like develop it and to learn to hear that voice and everything. But yeah, how about you?
Well, it's interesting, because I always tell people, if you really want to quiet your mind, meditation is the key. And the response is always like, oh, yeah, like, nobody, I don't want that. But it's not necessarily about sitting cross-legged for 40 minutes, umming it out. Like, that's not it at all. This is about just getting quiet with yourself. Taking your earbuds out, not looking at your phone, going for a walk in the woods or down the street, and not filling your head with other people's voices.
Yeah. And,
for me, because when I started this, I had severe postpartum depression, and I had lots of voices in my head. Spiritual and non-spiritual. And it was about me getting quiet. And I still remember the very first time I meditated, probably like sitting there going, okay, so is everybody's eyes closed? Like, are they feeling what I'm feeling? And you're like so anxious, and you're just like, am I doing this right? Like, oh my God, it's been 5 minutes and I haven't seen anything or felt any, and your head is like all over the place. And then, 2 months in, I would sit down in that circle, and immediately you're somewhere else. You're flying. You are connected to spirit. You are connected to source. You are connected to yourself. But it's a muscle. I think that is the one thing that isn't said enough in the spiritual community. That's like, if you were a elite athlete, and you were wanting to run 20 kilometers and do it in a certain amount of time, you're not going to go out the first day and run the 20 kilometers in the perfect time. You're going to have to train. And that's this whole thing, is you need to create a training ground for your spirituality. Like, you know, I love seeing your little altar in the background. I know that that's where you sit and you can, yeah, woo. You know, we need to make these spaces. And, you know, people say to me all the time, like, well, I don't have a space where I can do that. And I'm like, make one, find one.
Yeah, mine's like that's not a lot of space back there.
But it doesn't even have to be that big. It can be like a little wee tiny tin that you take everywhere with you. And when you open that tin, you know, you can have essential oils in there, and that could bring you to that sacred space. It can be outside of your home. You don't have to have an altar, but we need to make time, and we need to make space for our spiritual practice. And I think, you know, that has always been the key for me, is making the time. I find the days that I am most distracted, that I'm most, you know, like, oh my God, where are the answers, Spirit? Why are you not showing up? Is because I haven't made time for my connection. I haven't made time for the answers. And if you're not willing to do that, or you don't feel that pull yet, maybe it's not time. Maybe, you know, let the children grow up, let the craziness in your life settle down, and find that space. But if you're feeling pulled to it, then charge right after it.
Yeah, I feel like if you're watching this video, then you're probably like, you're probably
there
ready.
you go.
You probably just need to limit the time.
No, but I mean, even you said, like, how long did it take? I mean, I probably did all of this for myself for at least 2.5, 3 years before I even dared read for somebody else. Yes, I read in a circle with a group of people, and it was fun. We were like practicing on each other, but to actually step into having a business, it was 2 years before I felt confident enough that I could actually do this.
Yeah, and I think that's that's one of the things that we've talked about before, where you see people who are kind of like coming out of nowhere and suddenly they're like offering readings, and then when you kind of look at their background or their like about me page on their website or something, and it's like, oh, I picked up a deck like yesterday, but I felt like really connected to it, so I'm here doing readings. It's like, well, I don't know, for some people, maybe it does work like that. And it is like, you just open something up and you just feel ready, and it's like, let's go with it. But I think for most people, it's like, you have to do the work on yourself before you can do the work for someone else. I found that just huge in my life. Like, I can't do something for somebody else that I haven't done myself, or at least I can't open a door for them that I haven't opened for myself in some way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and we attract people around those issues. So like, I remember when I very first started doing readings, and I talk about this a lot, that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I found it really, really interesting that all my clients that were showing up were people that were trying to get pregnant and had polycystic ovarian syndrome. And they were like, I'm like, this is so weird. Like, why are you here? And, you know, it was more for me to say to them, hey, I healed myself. I got pregnant. This is possible. Like, you know, and yeah, Spirit stepped in and gave them all this stuff too. But we need to be coming from a healed place, because, oh my gosh, I don't know if you get these like messages from people, but the amount of times that I get, you know, I just got a really dark reading from somebody, and I'm not feeling like I'm not feeling like this is for me. And I'm like, no, it's probably not for you. They were probably just in a really shitty space when they read, and their energy is going into the cards. And if we're not cleared of our issues, our worries, our concerns, and we're not perfect. I'm not saying I'm coming from a completely healed space. I'm working on shit all the time. But I'm aware of what's going on in my space. And if I show up to a session and I'm feeling a little rough, I do all the work to clear that. I make sure that I'm not bringing that energy into that space. And those are the skills that you learn over time.
Mm.
You know, pulling a card and reading a card and saying you're a reader is one thing, but when you're sitting across from somebody that is dealing with something really, really heavy, and you're not in a grounded space, or you're not in a space where, you know, you're coming from the highest and greatest good, we can really hurt people. And we need to understand that this is a responsibility. Like, did you ever feel, Vix, as a kid growing up, that you were meant for something greater?
When I was a kid growing up, I wanted to be a pop star.
Was it Gem? You wanted to be Gem, didn't you?
No, I wanted to be Kylie Minogue.
Oh my God, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to be her. That was like, I just thought I was going to grow up and be Kylie Minogue. But that wasn't meant to be. Wasn't meant to be. I wanted to be like, I wanted to totally follow in her footsteps. I wanted to be on Neighbours, which for anyone that doesn't know is like a sitcom in not a sitcom, like a soap opera in Australia. And then I was going to be in musicals, and then I was going to have like a pop star career. Like that was what I wanted to do.
But that's still being on stage, like being in front of a lot of people, right? Like that's not like, oh, you know, I'm going to be an accountant and I'm going to work in an office. Like this is,
because
it's like I really do see rock, like pop stars as their spiritual guides just as much as we are. They connect people with something higher than, you know, themselves, because they're outside of their body spreading, you know, joy in the world.
I feel that a lot. I really do feel like I don't know, like sometimes when I look at pop stars or like, you know, people who are like really famous, I do kind of like get this feeling that actually they're kind of this might sound a bit weird, but I feel like they're sort of like anchors for the soul group. So when you like see a celebrity or somebody that you really resonate with, it's like, oh, I really resonate with that person, and you just want to send all your energy to them and you want to hold them in lots of love. And then there's so many other people who also like them, and it's like, yay, we found our people, like we found our community, which is really cool.
Exactly.
But I'm kind of glad that I didn't go down that road, because I feel like I feel like it just wouldn't have been as rewarding and fulfilling for me personally as you know it would be for someone else. I think like over the years, like I've just become more and more sensitive as well, and the idea of like having to get up on stage and, you know, be like, I mean, you get enough drama on social media even when you just have like a few thousand followers. Like I don't need 1 million followers.
Oh, for sure you do. You just like with that, like I need 1 million good followers,
well,
right?
I
need 1 million people that are gonna lift me up.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. No, I asked that question because I still remember, even like I was a photographer for 23 years. It's what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. But I remember sitting in Toronto on a patio with a friend who was a writer at the time. And I said that to him. I said, do you ever feel like you're supposed to be doing something bigger, like helping people, like in a deeper way? And as a writer, he did do that. Like he helped people through his writing. And I just always felt like, you know, there are people that are healers and there are people that are takers. and I feel like there's these two sections. Like, are you doing it in service? Are you doing this because you want to help other people? Or are you doing it because you want to make an income, or you want, you know, for yourself? Is this for yourself or is this for others? And I think that's really the divide that I'm seeing in the spiritual industry right now, that there is this core group of people that are just, you know, like that 6-figure thing. A spiritual business is not about the bottom line. And I know you've said this before, and I've definitely said this before. If you're in this for the money, you will be greatly disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean, I have massive gratitude for the life that I get to live. And I do make, like, I am abundant. I do make a decent income, but that's because we work really hard. This is our passion and our life. And I'm out there hustling because I want to support the people that are, you know, rising up and opening up into the spiritual world behind us. It's not about like, how can I make my first million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just really strange to me because like I look at this work in the way of, well, I got the calling
Yeah.
and the calling is to like be of service.
Yeah.
And then I just do what I feel guided to do from
Yeah.
there. And that's not to say it's easy because it's really hard because half the time you don't know what you're supposed to be doing and you're like, give me the answers. What am I supposed to be doing? But if you're on, like, if you are on the right path, like it will all kind of work its
Yeah.
way out. Like there were times at the start of my business where I wasn't making like hardly any money. And then and then I started making like a little bit of money. And then I got to the point where it's like, well, I'm making enough money if I don't go out and I don't buy clothes and I don't buy makeup and I don't like, you know, spend money on all of the things that I would like to spend money on. If I don't do that and I just live really frugally, I could maybe try to make this work. And that was the point where I left my teaching job. I was like, okay, I'm going to go into this now. But this was not from a place of, well, I'm not making very much money now, but I know the 6 figures is on the way. It was more like, I just feel like I just have to do this. And if it doesn't work out, I'll do something else. But like for me, it's always come from the place of, well, I'm just doing what I feel called to do. And there are definitely times where I go into that place of like, come on, I actually need some money now. Like,
I was saying to you last week, I'm like, oh my God, all the bills. Because if you don't know, I'm renovating my shop. We're investing heavily in my new shop. And you know, that's not a normal bill for me. I had a massive tax bill. I had to pay for and you're like, okay, I can afford to do this, but then there's no extras. Like, you know, I went to an event in Toronto this weekend and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go for the like really expensive room, or I'm not going to like buy the really expensive food, and I'll only have 2 beers. I won't have 6 beers. Like, you know, you have to, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, this is a very, you know, the industry that we're in does this. And I think it's because we get waves of people. There's waves of awakening. Like 2012, I think was one of the massive wake ups that everybody came on board. And then I think, do you feel this too, Vix? We're just right before another massive wave.
I do, but I feel like people are waking up really differently now.
Yeah.
Than they did before. I feel like, and this is probably not going to be as good for business, but I feel like a lot of people are waking up, but they're not calling it spiritual.
Right.
Like people are waking up like politically and environmentally, and people are like having that sort of awakening of, shit, like what are we doing? Like we need to be doing more. We need to be doing something. And so I feel like there will be people waking up who are like, okay, I need to sort out my chakras. But I feel like a lot of people are kind of not doing that part of it, or maybe they'll come to that part later, or maybe they never will. I don't think it really matters for some people, but yeah, I do feel like, because you can feel it and you can see it with all the news about the environment and all the political stuff that's going on here in the UK with Brexit, and over in America with all the stuff that's going on there at the moment. Like people want something different. Like people are waking up and talking about stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like that's more the collective. Like, I think we need to talk more about that collective consciousness. Like, you know, last week when all this stuff went down in the States, there was anger, there was frustration, there was anxiety, there was overwhelm, and everybody felt that across the boards. Like, I don't care if you're spiritual or not, everybody felt that. And I just want people to understand that the tools that we teach can help you navigate that energy. It can help you not feel it in the way that like sends you tumbling down into a deep dark spiral, that you can acknowledge it and then go, okay, here's how I get out of it.
Yeah.
Right. But we do have to we talked about this too before, because we were like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know what we're going to talk about. But we talked about that. I really feel like right now, spirit is asking us to be in our bodies more than ever. And I think people are struggling in the spiritual industry because they don't know how to teach that. They don't know how to teach going inward. They know how to teach going upward and connecting with these energies outside of ourselves. But how do we connect with self? And I think that's the piece that is really hard for people. You know, we were talking about that meditating concept where people are like, oh God, I don't want to meditate. But it's honestly so important to connect with yourself on a daily basis and tune into, where am I? Is this mine? Like, is this stress that I'm feeling, is this mine or is it the collective? And if it's not yours, then wash it out of your body. Like, do a little cleanse. Like, don't allow it to be there, you know?
Yeah, I feel that so much. And like, one thing that I've been doing myself with the collective is like, when you start to realize that you're connected to the collective and that you're absorbing everything that's going on in there. And I saw this happen last week as well. Like, at the end of the week, suddenly there were all these posts and different people I was talking to who were feeling like really depressed and really down. And people were just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I don't know what the point is. Like, like depression stuff, you know? And I talked to so many people on this one day and I was like, okay, something's going on here. And then I put a post up somewhere and so many people like resonated with it. So many people were writing back saying, thank you for this. I really needed to hear this today. But what I've realized is that if we can absorb things from the collective, we can also put things into the collective. And so like, my little fun thing is like, every time I feel like, oh, there's a lot of shit going around in the collective right now, I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and just like beam some good vibes into the collective.
Yeah, the Care Bear stare, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like, let's send some good thoughts. Like, we can do this, guys. We're going to be okay. Like, these little good thoughts going into the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
Someone will get them.
But it's also that piece of, because we were talking about spiritual bypassing a little bit too.
Yeah.
About how, you know, the spiritual industry is absolutely fabulous. Like, it's so amazing because there are so many tools within the industry. There's so many people teaching their own path, but we can't use it as a tool to wash away the things that we don't want to deal with. Because the true work within spirituality is going deep into that shadow, the dark place, the place that we don't really want to acknowledge. Like, over the last couple of years, I've had to have moments of, I'm a dick. Like, I am such an asshole. And like, why do I keep doing this? And I need to stop doing this. And I need to allow myself to see who I truly am and just, let's work on this. And when you work on it, you heal it and it gets good again. But we can't just go, oh, hey, white light or Archangel Gabriel or like whoever you want to call, cleanse that for me. Like, do the work for me. I don't even have any. Why do I not have crystals? Oh, I have some crystals. Like, put this crystal here and it will all be good. No. It's going to help.
It helps.
This like boosts whatever work you're doing. Like, I said to Vix, I'm like, I can't tell people not to buy these things because they're in my shop. But, and like, like you said, it's bad for business.
Yeah.
But these just boost the work that you're doing. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do the work. We need to like, you know, put that message out there that it's not all about the tools. It's about doing that work.
Mm. Yeah, I've been doing this thing lately where when I'm in meditation and I'm sort of tuning into what's in my energy fields, like when I first kind of started doing that, it was all about like, you know, calling in the different energies to like clear my energy. And now I kind of ask like, take what's not mine and show me what is mine so that I can do the work and clear it myself.
That's awesome.
Because I think so often we have this idea that whatever's negative has to be released and cleared. And it's like, well, it does if it's not yours. Sometimes it's yours.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's a challenge or a block or something that actually you can't just ask the angels to take it away. It's like, this is your current assignment. Like, this is what you're supposed to be working on right now.
Yeah, like, I mean, my whole thing has been for the last probably, well, no, my entire life up until this moment, not this moment, but like the previous moment, has been betrayal and abandonment. And that showed up so friggin' much. I can't even tell you. And it was tearing me down. And in the beginning, it was like, take it away, take it away, take it away. And then when I realized, well, I got to do some work around this because I think this has been lifetimes of this. And then that's when that lifted. It's when I acknowledged that it was mine to heal. It was nobody else's to heal. I had to do the work. I had to put in the effort. And then it went away. And it was almost like, bam, gone.
Yeah.
How amazing is that? I didn't have to call in anybody to take it away anymore. I didn't have to deal with that anxiety. I didn't have to, but I had to like almost pull it out of me and put it in front of me and go, oh dear God, this is horrible and ugly and nasty, and why me? But like at the same time, of course me, because that's my journey. That's a piece of me. And we need to acknowledge that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yet that's genius. I'm going to take that little tidbit from you and I'm going to put that in my own practice about like, this is, if it's mine, let me keep it. Let me work on it. Let me heal it. Yeah.
And show me how to do that. But yeah.
Yeah. Please.
Give me some tips. But yeah. Yeah. Because I felt, I felt that for so long. Like, it's that whole spiritual bypassing thing. And I've been finding myself really noticing when other people are doing that. And I know that sometimes when you're really noticing other people doing that, it's an opportunity to say, do I do that? There's some places where maybe I'm doing that too. Yeah. But yeah, like, it's like, well, where am I doing that? I mean, for years, my spiritual practice has been like, clear your energy, ground your energy, protect your energy, like do all of that stuff. And that's been really, really useful for a really long time. But then you get to the next level and it's like, well, that has served you to a point. And now it's like, okay, now you need to step up and you actually need to still clear your energy. But when there's something there that won't leave, don't just keep asking angels to take it all the time. Look at it. Like, this is your lesson. This is your assignment. This is your opportunity for growth. And when you do that work, then you reach the other side and then you get a new assignment.
What's the new assignment? Tell me what my new assignment is, because I'm really interested to know.
And help me learn it quickly and with ease and grace.
Well, I think the thing is too, I wish more spiritual leaders would come out and say, I don't have all my shit together. I don't have all the answers. I don't have and I'm constantly, like my relationship with my husband, I'm very open about that. He would probably die if he knew, because he's like a majorly private person. But I'm very clear about the fact that me and my husband butt heads all the time. We don't have the happy joy. I mean, we do, but there's moments of we work on stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
We work through it. I don't just go, oh, I'm going to love my husband. And he, he's so good to me. Not all the time. My husband is not, I'm not good to him all the time. I'm a jerk sometimes too. And we're human. We have to acknowledge, yes, we're working in a spiritual industry. Yes, we're doing all of this stuff to raise our vibration and try to hopefully be better people. But we still have dark pieces. We have stuff that we don't understand. I still think it's funny. We started this whole thing with what are we going to talk about? Because Spirit hasn't given me anything lately, for my personal stuff. And you're the same. And I just think what's this about? Why, why do we need to are we just supposed to spit out what's coming into our head? I feel unguided. Oh God.
Yeah. I totally feel that. I feel that so much. And I feel like it's changing, but I feel like there's a lot of different types of spiritual teachers out there at the moment. And I feel like you and me are part of the kind of next wave where it's okay to talk about stuff that you're going through. And it's okay to say, I didn't do my spiritual practice today, and this is why, and this is how it made me feel, and this is what I'm going to do about it. Or I'm having trouble with this, I'm struggling with this thing. Because I want that. I want to see my teachers sharing what they're going through. I feel like we've kind of, for a long time, we've had these spiritual teachers who we have made into gurus, and we've looked up to them as being like, oh my goodness, like they are so much better than me, and they're so much more connected than me, and they're more spiritual than me, and they have sorted all their stuff out, and I'm still very much on the path. And it's just not true. We're all working through our stuff.
I honestly feel like, and I made this kind of decision years ago, is good teachers are still working on their shit.
Yeah.
Like I went to fine arts school. So one of the stipulations for the teachers that were teaching at my fine arts school was they had to still be working in the industry. And it was funny because there was these two sections. There was a section of teachers that were tenured, that weren't really working in the industry. They were kind of doing it as a hobby, and they were full-time. And then there was the part-time teachers that were still fully in the industry, still had their toes in, still doing the work. And they were my favorite teachers. And it was this real revelation to me that if you're not doing the work, if you're not in it, actually accessing that consciousness, not doing, I don't meditate every day. I am the worst meditator ever. I would much rather go for a walk in the woods or go for a drive.
But that's still it, right?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I don't always pull cards every day. I'm not doing all of those things, but it makes me a better teacher because I can go, oh shit, I haven't done my work for a week and I suck right now. Or like, I'm not feeling the vibe, or I'm not connected, or any of those things. So then I can say to people, do the practice. You need to do the practice because that's where the connection comes from. You can't just like put up a little sign and say I'm spiritual and then you're spiritual. That's not how this works. Yeah. So yeah, I hope and like pray that is majority of the industry moves that way, because we can't have people that are teaching from I know it all.
Yeah. And I would you got to go with the teachers who you resonate with.
Yeah.
But the teachers that I resonate with at the moment are the people who have been doing it for a while. Like they're not just, I just bought my first deck yesterday. Like they've been doing their spiritual stuff for a while, and it doesn't have to be like 50 years or 25 years.
No.
It can be like a couple of years, or even like there are people waking up so quickly now. Like it could even be that you've just been on the path for a year, but in that year you've like learned so much, and you've been through a lot, and you've worked out so much stuff. But I am really discerning with like who I follow online and who I connect with and whose books I read, because I want to connect with people who are on the same path as me, and the path that I'm on is one that's very much a path. Like I'm not at the end of that path. Like I'm not down the end of the path saying, guys, I can tell you how to get here. I'm on the path with you. We're like running buddies, and I'm like, hey, like I can tell you what I've been doing to get this far.
Yeah, I'm not quite at the yet.
Yeah,
I hope I don't. And the other piece is, our lives would be so boring if there was an end to it, and I think too, we were talking about, there is no end. There are no answers. Nobody has all the answers because nobody knows, especially within the spiritual realm. We were talking about how, for some people, angels show up a certain way. And for other people, like I will say, even though I, follow people that teach about angels, that teach about dragons, that teach about all of these things, I cannot make them show up to the life of me. And like, I have felt angels sometimes, and like, they show me that they're there, but like not in the way that everybody else talks about it. And I think the thing is too, if it's not showing up for you, maybe it's not your path. Like, don't force things, and like, don't think that angels or dragons or whatever has to be a part of your practice because somebody else resonates with them. Find what resonates with you. Like, right now I am so frustrated with the appropriation conversation. I don't know if you get into this much, but I have hidden pieces of myself because I'm afraid people are going to come out and stomp all over me, right? It's like the Norse Viking piece, which I got massive validation when I was in England because I found out that they are a part of my family. But like for the longest time, I hid that piece because, you know, I talked about Freya and Odin, but I didn't go into much because people come up and go, well, how dare you? You're not from, you know, you're not from that land. You're not from this place. And I'm like, nobody owns any of it. Nobody, you know, yes, it's sacred. Honor it. Teach it in a way that is respectful, or use it in a way that is respectful. But please don't be afraid to pick up anything that resonates with you. Like, I think that's one of my massive frustrations.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that so much because I think part of the appropriation conversation is around not respecting what we're doing and not respecting the teachings. And you do see people who don't seem to respect it, and they're like, woohoo, look at me with my sage and my whatever. And I'm like, you know, like the Instagram witches, and you know, it's all about the aesthetic and whatever, and it looks cool, but it's like, what else is going on here? But you know, then there's other people who are kind of really connecting with these teachings and these different cultures in a totally different way. And yeah, I think whatever you're doing, it's all about respect, right? Yeah.
No, I think ultimately, I think that's why we wanted to have this conversation, is because we want people to respect the industry that we're in.
Yeah.
I think right now, especially, when they came out with the Witch Kit, Sephora came out with the Witch Kit last year. That was like,
what was your thoughts on that? Because there were so many different like opinions.
I didn't like the idea that, because I mean, there are all kinds of witches, right? I love the fact that you can be pink and flowery and unicorns and be a witch. Like, there is no true definition of what a witch is. Yeah, exactly. We can be healers and be witches. We can be midwives and be witches. Witches are friggin' everywhere. But I think it was just the pure jumping on the bandwagon monetization. And at the time that Sephora thing came out, it was still kind of like, I had a conversation on live maybe about 6 months before that about saying the word witch, and how I had always felt strangled when I went to say that word because of my ancestors. Like, I come from a fully crazy witchy woo background, and it was hard for me to say that. But then this company builds this box and puts the pretty witch thing on it, makes it all pink and lovely, and like, here, buy it for this. And there were no witches involved in the creation of it. They had stolen some of the imagery and not paid the artist. Like, it was just the way they did it, I think, was, you know, I don't mind. I have a witch store. Like, come and buy my witch kit. Like, you know what I mean? But honor it. Yeah. Don't just take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt a lot the same with that. I didn't like the way it was done, but there was something about the fact that you could use the word witch in a shop like that made me kind of feel like, wow, it's okay to like call ourselves witches now. And so there was something about that whole thing that made me kind of feel like this is kind of a good thing in a way. Not the way they did it wasn't good, but this could have been a really good thing.
Yeah.
To be able to have girls, like young girls, like 13, like I know when I was 13, starting to get into witchy stuff, like to walk into I was going out for lipstick and I came home with like some potions. This is fun.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. This is cool. Yeah. But yeah, it was, it's interesting times, isn't it?
It is. Well, and I get it I'm nervous to say things. Like, we were even nervous to have this conversation about how we feel about the spiritual industry, because I don't want to bash anybody. I don't want to say they're right or they're wrong, I'm right. That's not the conversation I want to have. But it's also, we need to show all the different varying opinions. We need to show that there are, you know, standards that we need to live up to within the spiritual industry, that we can't just say, sticker, I'm a witch, and like, you know, go out there and then just continue to do that. Like, you have to do the work.
Yeah. It's it's really interesting times. Why did we sign up for this?
I don't know. It's hard. It is hard. You have to, like, I just, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I don't want to piss anybody off. But at the same time, I feel like we're at a place where we kind of have to speak our truth.
Yeah.
We have to say what's in our hearts, and we have to show people that there is a path that leads to this really great place within yourself, and that it's not necessarily connected to the people that you think are doing the work, because there's some people out there that are like, I'm doing the work. No, you're not. I know you're not. Like, I can see it in your work. You're not doing the work. Like, it just, it just doesn't show up. And I think it really comes down to doing your research. Following somebody for a while, making sure that they're a person that is practicing what they preach, as opposed to somebody that's just like, preaching and saying, okay, where's my $500? Like that. If it doesn't feel in alignment, then listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, trust what you see.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like one thing I really found too on my journey is that there's like, I feel like there's different teachers for different times as well. Like some of the teachers that I was following like 5-6 years ago, I don't resonate with at all anymore, and wouldn't even really recommend their teachings now. But at the time it was like, that was exactly what I needed. So you really have to see what you're drawn to and what resonates with you. But then as you're like, whenever you're reading anything or watching video, like even this video or getting a reading or anything, like go in with discernment and just have the intention of, well, I'm going to take what resonates and just let the rest go.
Exactly. And be okay with only taking pieces of somebody's conversation.
Yeah.
The way that I do my daily spiritual practice is probably different than the way you do your daily spiritual practice, but people can watch both and take pieces that feel good to them. They don't have to do the whole thing. This is your spiritual journey. It's nobody else's. And we need to focus on that piece more than anything else.
Yeah. And there really is, like we were talking about before, there is no right or wrong way to do any of this stuff.
No.
Like we're all just making it up. Like
exactly.
if you're following someone else's like practice, well, they've just made it up. Maybe they got it from someone else who also made it up, or who got it from someone else. Like there's no book or rule book of like how you're supposed to do this. It's just about what works for you.
Yeah. Well, and I just think it's so funny because, even within the last 100 years, how much we've evolved as human beings, and that we need, the whole social media, I don't know. I love it and hate it. I think we had this conversation earlier because, I, for one, it always makes me giggle that I don't even have 3,000 followers on Instagram. I know, which is insane to me. But my people are so passionate and so, active and so amazing. But some people will look at that and go, oh, she's nothing because she's got less than 3,000 followers, so I'm not going to follow her. Her stuff isn't of value. Do not do that. There are people in the spiritual industry that have like 500 followers that are just doing the work. They're showing up every day, and they are probably even more connected than me because I've got to hop on Instagram and make 6 posts in one day, right? They don't have that pressure yet, right? So they're probably more in the spiritual, dirt than I am because I've got a business to run. Like I've got to do all the things that make it work. And I think we've got to stop putting people on a pedestal because so many people are following them, that so many other people have showed up for them. Well, are those people engaged? Are those 300,000 followers actually showing up? Or did they just like them because they thought they might get a tidbit that works for them?
Yeah.
Follow some of the people that are just, doing the work, showing up. I love the fact that there are actually some of my spiritual people not on social media. Like you go to tag somebody and you're like, what? They don't have a handle?
Yeah, that's amazing. In some ways, some days, especially when like the energy is full on, I just want to like shut everything down and just like do readings from my house and just have people, but not even do like not even advertise it and just be like, well, someone will just come to the door and be like, I don't know why I'm here, but I felt the call to just like knock on your door. And I'll be like, yeah, you're here for reading.
This is where I was going with 100 years ago. 100 years ago, every town had a wise woman, and she lived on the edge of the village. And you showed up with some fruits and vegetables and a like a fur, and you like gave her that to give you some advice, to give you direction. She'd make you a potion, and she'd do all these things, or tea, doesn't matter, either or. And we've so strayed away from this trusting people because they're doing the work. And that's frustrating. You know, like, I don't know what you think about certifications, but I want to just like destroy them all. Because like, you know, yeah, you can go and do an Oracle tarot card masterclass on a weekend and get a certification from it, but that doesn't mean that you've actually done the work. Like, they're not following you up. They're not making sure, like, we're not apprenticing anymore. I would love for the spiritual industry to start apprenticing people, that you have to apprentice with. Oh, did you get shivers?
Yeah, I was just like, oh, I want to do that. I wouldn't apprentice.
Like, I would love to find that crazy old lady that lives in the wood and go live with her for a year. Yeah. Like, that would be, I would love that. And I'm like, as I'm sitting here going, wait a second, I'm the crazy old lady that lives in the woods.
Yeah, it's like, I want to be an apprentice, but I also want an apprentice.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like the ultimate, like, what do you call it when you go and you just like work somewhere for a week, like for free? Work experience. It's
like internship.
And they can like clean your altar off for you, and like
I know, I need one of those. I was, as a photographer, and I think it's still going, I was an assistant for 6 years before I became a full-fledged photographer, where I felt confident. And I did that. I cleaned toilets, I swept floors, I made coffee, ran for anything and everything that photographer needed. And the experience that I got, I can't even, like, how to deal with clients, how to like work with companies, how to write contracts, how to do this, how to do that. And you know, I think the frustrating thing is now, and I think why people have turned away from it, and this is another one of my frustrations with the industry, is people are now doing that, showing up for a week, and then literally taking everything that they learned, turning around and spitting it out.
Yeah.
And not realizing that they actually have to put in their own work. So I think it's like, we need to make those apprenticeships longer. Like,
longer than a week.
We need it to be like a 2-year process for people to work with me, so you can see what I do. So then in turn, you can like start doing the work.
Yeah.
And then it would be then I'd have to get up and get dressed every morning.
But at least you can have your apprentice to like iron your clothes and like.
Exactly. Feed my dog, take her out for a pee. It would be amazing.
One thing I did when I started my my tarot business was I did 100 readings for free.
Yeah.
And I sort of think that was a bit like my apprenticeship, because I was following different people online, and I was reading tarot books, and I was practicing a lot on my own, but I didn't have like a teacher. Like, I didn't have anybody kind of teaching me. But I was listening to, do you know Dusty White?
That sounds familiar. I don't think I know.
He was like my, I guess he was like my tarot teacher in a way, because I was listening to all his podcasts and stuff at that time. And he said, he was like really intense about it. He was like, if you want to be a tarot reader, you have to do 100 free readings. Like, don't do it unless you've done 100 free readings. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go off and do my 100 free readings then. And it was intense, but I am so glad I did that, because it was my practice. It was my opportunity to practice talking to people and connecting with clients. The whole point of it was like, I'll do a free reading for you if you give me feedback. So I got loads of feedback. And a lot of those people ended up becoming clients as well, like once I put up my paid services. But I would recommend that to anybody who's thinking, I want to be a tarot reader. Do 100 free readings. And if you think, I can't do 100 free readings, then ask yourself why.
Yeah. Why are you even doing this?
Yeah, like why can't you do 100 free readings? And then I was also doing like, you know, a lot of people do get on Facebook Live, and I was doing them on Periscope at that time. Where I would just get on Periscope and just do like free readings for people. And it sucked sometimes because it took a lot of energy and a lot of time, and it was like, why am I doing all this stuff for free? But at that time it was like I needed to do that. Nobody knew who I was. Like if I put myself on, like, you know, if I've had a website or whatever and was like, oh, my readings are £100, who's going to pay that when they have no idea who you are or if you're any good at what you do?
Yeah.
So yeah, so doing that, like that really felt like that was my apprenticeship. And it took me a good couple of months to get through 100 free readings. Like,
well, I was gonna say, didn't that take a year? Like that's what
well, I started off doing like full readings for people, so like it's an hour or something. And then I think when I got to about 50 or 60, I started doing like 3 card readings, so more like half an hour. Yeah. And then I will admit, like about the last 10, I was just doing like 1 card readings for people because I was like, I know what I'm doing. Like the feedback has been really good. Like I'll just do this because I said I was going to do it. And but
I think mine was, I did 35 free readings. And this was after like years of being at the Spiritualist Church and doing readings in the round and doing like, what do they call that when you're rostrum work or whatever. And I did 5 and went, oh shit, I should be charging.
Yeah. Well, it's different for everyone, right?
It is, but it was more because I'd done so many already that I didn't realize that it was just going to be that easy. Like if you'd done already 200, I thought like sitting down with somebody and doing it differently was going to be so much harder. And, you know, it made me giggle because for me, that process was more about, okay, where does my table go? Am I going to offer them tea? Are they going to pull the cards? Am I going to pull the cards? Like, how is this going to work? Because you don't want to be charging for something and looking like you're making it up as you go along. Because you're going to lose confidence in those clients. And I think really, yes, the spiritual industry is fun and cool. And, you know, the cards are pretty and the crystals are pretty, but we're in service to spirit. We're doing some pretty serious work and we need to take this industry seriously. And I think it's kind of gotten off track a little bit. You know, we're just, you know, I see so many people doing drunk readings. I see so many people doing like, you know, they're in costume and they're doing readings. And yeah, it can be fun, but we also have to remember that in that moment, somebody could be going through something that's really friggin' intense. And they're showing up to you to be their spiritual advisor because they don't know what to do with their lives. And that one answer, that one, you know, flip remark could destroy their lives. Like, you know, and people don't take that seriously. Like I always come back to the story about Sylvia Browne. Were you a fan of hers? I never really...
I'm kind of familiar with her work, but
yeah, I never resonated. She had like these crazy long nails or whatever, but she read for somebody once and they were asking, is their daughter dead? And she said, yeah, she's dead. And the mom actually ended up taking her own life because she couldn't live without her daughter being in this world. Well, 3 years later, she showed up. She wasn't dead, right? And we have to like respect how much this is affecting people's lives. Like we want to understand that, yeah, some people are showing up and saying, hey, is this guy going to love me? Or, hey, should I take this job? Or, hey, should I do this? But there's other people show up and they're at their worst and they are ready to shift and change and they need big answers. And, you know, yeah, a 1-card pull could answer all those questions, but we have to honor the energy we're working with and we have to respect it and we have to not be flippant. We have to not be like, you know, quick to answer and quick to like actually respect the work you're doing.
Yeah. I agree with that so much. And I think that's the thing too, is like it feels like there's kind of 2 sides to the spiritual path at the moment. It's like there's this side that's all like the pretty Instagram witch, where everyone's got the, you know, the amazing altar and everything looks beautiful, and you've got the newest cards, and you've got like the best, like the long nails and stuff, like stuff. And it looks great. And I follow some of those accounts because I'm like, this is so beautiful.
Pretty.
And some of the quotes they post are really cool and stuff. But there is like that other side to it where it's like the real truth of what's going on, you know, like behind the Instagram. People do come to you when you're a reader, and they come with like all sorts of stuff. And like I really feel like, you know, my job isn't necessarily to tell people what to do or what's going to happen. My job is just to be there and hold space for those people so that they can move through whatever's going on for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a huge responsibility. And I think the people that are called to this work are starting to acknowledge that. I can see it. It's starting to come like, okay, you know, and the reason why we get these dips and raises in the spiritual industry is a ton of false prophets will show up, people that don't necessarily know what they're talking about, don't necessarily do the work. And then everybody goes to them because they look cool and sparkly and awesome. And they have shitty readings, and they have a bad experience, and then nobody trusts, and it dips. And I've had so many clients tell me that they were nervous to book with me because they'd had so many bad experiences and they didn't want to have another bad experience. And I just, my request to the spiritual world is, if you're not serious about this, please don't do it. Yeah.
I think the thing is too, is like, you don't have to do it. I feel like there's a lot of like messaging out there at the moment that's like, well, if you're spiritual, then get into it, practice reading, and then when you're good at reading, you go start reading for other people, and then you can make a business out of it.
Yeah.
You don't have to make a business out of it. You can just be spiritual because it's your personal journey and you're just really into it and it helps you. And maybe you do some readings for your friends on the weekend and it helps them. But that doesn't mean that you have to ditch your job and become like a professional reader or healer. You can if that feels like it's right for you. But I feel like there's so many people out there who are getting these messages around, oh, you got your first tarot deck, cool, like you should become a tarot reader. It's like, you don't have to. Like, we're all here to do different things for different reasons, and it can just be that this is part of your life. It doesn't have to be your whole life.
Well, and I tell people all the time, one of my clients years ago came to me and said, well, I'm feeling all of this rising up in me. And she was really into Reiki. She was really into healing. And she's like, I feel like I'm called to be a healer. And I said, well, what path are you on? And she's like, well, it's completely opposite to this. And I said, but where can you bring Reiki into what you do? Where can you bring your intuition into what you do? These can just be pieces that we bring into our careers. I mean, now as I stand back from it, I was using my superpowers as a photographer to help to hold space for people's energy so they could be happy. Like, I know, like, that's why I got such amazing pictures, because I could push my energy out and all of a sudden they would feel confident, they would feel safe, they could feel, and it impacted my business in such a massive way. And I had such amazing clients because of it. Now, I didn't have to turn this into a business because I was already using it. So where can you use this stuff in the business that you're in? I mean, think about if you're like a therapist or a massage therapist, why can't you just bring those readings into that healing? Why can't you just have that as a part of your business? It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah. I feel like that's just such an important thing, because I don't know where it came from, but it just seems like everybody these days is a tarot reader. Like, it's like, oh, I'm a tarot reader now. Or like, people kind of start their Instagram and they got like 3 pictures and then they're like, oh, DM me for like pricing and I'll do a reading for you. It's like, what? And I know some of those people have probably been doing it for ages, like not on Instagram, but sometimes it's like, oh, I got my first deck today, DM me for pricing. It's like, what?
Yeah. No. Just honor the work. You know, it's just like anything else. You know, it was the same being a photographer. When digital photography came out, everybody became a photographer. And it really, and I'm a little frightened for the spiritual industry, because the photography industry was destroyed. We used to call them weekend warriors, right? They would work a full-time job, and then on the weekends, which I don't understand why you'd want to do that. Wedding photography is so freaking stressful and tiring. And why would you want to spend your weekends doing that? Like, I don't understand. Like, I loved doing what I did, but I wouldn't like have a job on top of that. And I feel like that's where the spiritual industry is. It's about to go that way, where we have all these weekend warriors and people that are doing parties on a Tuesday night, or just showing up and reading cards in a circle for people. And I get it. It's fun. I love my job. We love our job. It's why we're here talking about it. But it doesn't mean that you have to do it for a profession.
Yeah. It can just be for you.
Yeah.
It can just be to help you like navigate through your own life with a bit more ease.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be for everybody else. I mean, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Well, and the message I keep getting, which I will probably negate everything that we just said, is I truly believe that there's going to be another raise in vibration, and everybody is going to be able to see what we see. Everybody is going to be able to connect. It won't be as hard as it used to be. The vibration keeps coming up, and I feel like it will just be a skill. I mean, I'm starting to teach a course on woo parenting, because all these kids are showing up awake.
Mm.
They're so connected. They're so in tune. They're so affected by energy. And I think everybody's going to have this gift. Like, we're evolving to that point. But again, just because we can all, play cards doesn't mean that we should go out and be professional poker players. Like,
I love that. Yeah. I feel that so much.
Yeah. Oh, well, this was such a great conversation.
We're like, what are we going to talk about? We have like all those questions that we need to answer too. Maybe we need to do that in another video.
Yeah,
or should we do some now? Or should we wrap up now? This is quite long.
How long is it?
I think it's been like an hour and 20 minutes-ish.
Okay. Why don't we wrap up, and then we'll do the questions next week. Okay. And then more people who've watched this video, leave the questions below, and we can answer those questions, because we want to help people in this industry.
Yay!
I'm so excited to do this more often. I feel like Spirit is like conspiring to push us together to spread this word that, the industry is a great place. Don't be afraid of it. But at the same time, respect the process.
Yeah, and do it for the right reasons.
Yeah. Cool. Well, bye for now, Woo Mates. Thanks for showing up and watching.
I'll see you again soon.
Yeah.